Alright, I wanted to do my bit on another hardware video, and this one is more on the philosophy side of it. I wanted to get into one philosophy camp, which is limited hardware, which is the purpose is to try to achieve a better relationship with the software. And the other philosophy camp, which is an unlimited really range of hardware that my software could run on. I'll start with the first, or the former, saying that I lean towards that because I've seen it, especially in the high-end systems that I've worked with in an Apple, that a better use of hardware is obtained by limiting the amount of hardware. That's all things being equal, and they don't screw up. I mean, there are going to be times that the manufacturer completely makes major mistakes and doesn't achieve what they actually set out to do. But all things being equal, getting that the limited range of hardware to the software relationship, they're able to design it from the ground up, and they know what they're going to be running on, and therefore can really specifically get into it and either make the system more efficient, giving you really great results on that, based on that efficiency, or even give you some specializations that you wouldn't get on the opposite camp, where the software must run on a huge range of hardware, whether it's the crappiest scenario or the best scenario of hardware. It's got to run on everything in between, from pole to pole. So I think that scenario, that philosophy, we are seeing the results of that with constant driver issues within Windows, more third-party intervention, although Apple has a tremendous amount of third-party involvement, but that third-party involvement has a smaller set of variables to work with in terms of hardware than someone programming for Windows and having to deal with a larger range of hardware. And I think that is reflected in the OS. Now, there are going to be people, and I built my own clones, and I've said that over and over again in many of my videos, and it's great, and so long as you know what you're doing, and you can create some really badass hardware boxes and configure it correctly and everything. More than not, at least when I was a technician, many did build their own boxes and didn't know how to configure it correctly and had terrible performance. But there are those out there that know what they're doing, and it's a negative to say, well, you know, you're not going to be able to do that because we're limiting you on your choice of hardware. But for me, even though all the clones I've built, when it comes to OS and I need a result within what my OS is going to do for me, I can agree with that philosophy of limiting the hardware and saying I'm going to give you the best possible performance, but you better deliver on that at the same time. Now, getting a consumer side of selection, because a lot of people who do like to build their own boxes and don't even go to the OEM side of the Windows side boxes, where Dell, HP, whatever, and they don't, let's say they're giving Apple a look. I know there's many scenarios where they say, well, you know, I can't stand the Mac Mini, I don't like the iMac, and I can't afford the Mac Pro, and I'm not here for a notebook. I'm looking for just a normal desktop computer. Well, you don't have much. That's pretty much it. And if you're not going to likely buy from Apple, and so that would behoove Apple to give more models out there. Since I'm limiting the amount of what you can do in terms of hardware, okay, I'm going to possibly create more models for you. And I happen to really love all the models that Apple has produced, but there are I'm sure, a tremendous amount of people that would disagree with me. So, but like I said, that should behoove these vendors, that if they are in that philosophy camp, then okay, if we are going to give our consumers something to compensate for this ideology that's really the dominant ideology, which is this free range of hardware. We can get more models. Now, the hardcore people on that philosophy side of the camp will say the open range hardware is a completely incorrect way of computing, and they don't give any concessions to building your own boxes or having a tremendous amount of hardware selection. And really, to that effect, you could say, well, let's look back at how we got to this place. And I could say that, well, outside of the Unix world, we'll just stick with, let's say, Apple and the Microsoft scenario, that, well, the way I see it, Apple made some business mistakes early on, which allowed Microsoft to pervade itself on more machines that were available. I mean, IBM was getting involved, and others that were building boxes, and they were all looking for software. And the way it was headed for a little while was that each was going to really have their own set of software and their own box. It was considered at the time that the profit was in the actual box itself, and in many cases today it's still the same. I mean, there's dedicated hardware vendors, obviously. Now, it just so happens that while Apple was dominant in terms of providing a hardware to software box for many years, with the whole release of the Macintosh, I think they made mistakes in terms of, well, the end result use of it. In terms of I don't think they got applications on it fast enough, and thus businesses didn't really take to it as much as I think Steve Jobs would have liked. That opened the door for really the software philosophy of Microsoft, that I will run on any box that you have, and it lent at least this is my opinion of the version, the way I recall it, and have studied it, why we are where we are. Not to say that had Apple dominated, that it could very well be that we would have more hardware selection, and it is going that way with Apple. After all, I can put Crucial RAM in my machines. I can put NVIDIA cards. I can put AMD cards in my machines. I can put Western Digital in my machine. Really, the only thing is the CPU to the motherboard or logic board, if you will, which is locked down. I can at least, I mean, this is years back. I can go to early 2000 machines like G4s and stuff, and I can hack them to death. And we could call them Frankintoshes, and they're pretty much at the level of where building your clone is today. But all of the current Macs aren't going to be so much that way. But it is slowly getting there, and I will say on the record that I would like to have a larger but still limited range for my Macs on what I can do with them, allowing me to go in there and be able to do it. I mean, after all, you can see with the Cube that was built that Apple has fantastic designs, from taking the Cube out to the G4 drawbridge door to the ease of getting into all of their Power Macs. I mean, they definitely address people wanting to get into their machines. They've got that down to a T. And they are expanding currently, but I think we should probably try to get to a larger, but I understand, limited range that we can get from. So I'll leave it at that. Thanks for watching.